There are moments in wartime history where ingenuity outpaced resources, and this is one of those moments worth pausing on. Many people talk about the big inventions of the 1940s, engines, code machines, new weapons, but some of the most impactful tricks came from the ground, from soldiers and civilians who needed every advantage just to stay alive. One such overlooked technique is the charred-wood windshield, a heat-reflecting barrier that turned weak flames into high-output fire pits. It's the kind of field solution that doesn't show up in official manuals, yet everyone from frontline soldiers in frozen forests to partisans hiding in the mountains relied on some version of it. And if you're someone who studies how people solved real problems under pressure, this small blackened wall tells a far larger story about human problem-solving during the war. Let's get into how this trick worked, why it mattered, and how the same principle still applies today for anyone studying historic survival methods or experimenting with primitive heat optimization. The charred wood shield started as a response to two battlefield needs. Across the European and Pacific fronts, one of the biggest challenges for soldiers living outdoors was heat loss. Open flames simply bled energy into cold night air. For troops trying to cook rapidly, dry clothing, keep a small shelter warm, or stay hidden, an exposed fire was inefficient and dangerous. A flame that burned too low wasted fuel. A flame that burned too brightly could be seen for miles. The charred wood shield helped solve both problems. Troops built these small structures by taking pieces of wood, often scavenged branches or rough-cut planks, charring them just enough to blacken the surface, then arranging them into a concave wall behind the fire. The blackened surface absorbed heat from the flames, instead of reflecting it outward in random directions. Once heated, the charred wall then radiated that stored energy forward, concentrating warmth toward the user instead of letting it dissipate. That combination made fires burn hotter, faster, and more directionally than an open pit ever could. The key was understanding how charred wood interacts with heat. Charred wood changes its behavior dramatically. When wood is lightly blackened, the cellular structure becomes more porous, which lets it absorb heat quickly. Black surfaces also have a higher emissivity, meaning once heated, they release energy more efficiently. In simple terms, the charred wood acts like a one-directional heat battery. It soaks up warmth from the fire and then pushes it forward. There's a reason this principle shows up in everything from ancient kilns to modern rocket stoves. Many World War II soldiers wouldn't have used the scientific vocabulary for it, but, well, they understood what they were seeing. Less fuel created more heat, and heat went where they needed it. This mattered in areas like the Ardennes, the Carpathians, or the forests of Manchuria, where fuel wasn't always abundant and, honestly, the risk of exposure was deadly. Field reports describe how it saved fuel and concentrated heat in small camps. In partisan diaries from Eastern Europe, fighters describe building blackened windshields behind tiny cooking fires so they could boil water in half the usual time. Swiss border guards noted that refugee groups crossing into alpine passes often used charred wood walls to make small fires capable of drying soaked boots overnight without needing large flames that could give away a position. Even in the Pacific, where heat wasn't the main issue, the principle was used to make compact cooking fires more efficient. Dense jungle wood burns inconsistently, and charred wood barriers helped stabilize heat output so meals could be prepared quickly before patrols moved on. Building one was straightforward, but the technique came with specific steps. Soldiers usually started by selecting wood that wasn't resin-heavy. Pine could work, but hardwoods performed better because they didn't produce sticky soot. The wood was either partially burned in the campfire until the exterior turned fully black, or it was charred deliberately with a separate flame or hot coals. Once cooled, the pieces were arranged vertically behind the main fire in a curved or three-sided layout. The curve mattered. You see, a flat wall just absorbed heat, but a curved wall redirected it. Many surviving photos from winter encampments show charred logs propped upright, forming a semicircle that focused warmth toward a tent opening or a cooking pot. The entire structure worked as a rudimentary heat furnace, without requiring masonry, metal, or anything that couldn't be abandoned quickly. And, well, this wasn't just about staying warm, it was about staying hidden. Open fires are visible, loud, and, well, they smell strongly. A directional fire created by a charred wood wall actually solves several tactical problems at once. A hotter, more concentrated flame produced less smoke. This alone made a tremendous difference for scouts, resistance groups, or soldiers on watch duty who needed to prepare hot food without signalling their position. The wall also acted as a partial visual barrier. From a distance, a bright flame flickering freely is easy to spot, but a controlled flame pressed against a darkened background just blends into shadows. Several German and Soviet field manuals included hand-drawn diagrams of low-visibility fires, many of which look remarkably similar to these charred wood setups, even if they weren't labelled that way. Survivalists today can still use this technique with real benefits. If you want to apply this knowledge in a modern off-grid or wilderness setting, the process really hasn't changed. Start by charring the exterior of several wooden planks or branches. Don't burn them through, only the surface needs to blacken. Once the pieces cool, place them upright behind your fire in a half circle, with the open side facing you. The fire will heat faster, cook faster, and project warmth more effectively in one direction. Someone camping in cold, windy terrain can use this to create a sheltered heat pocket without relying on metal reflectors. A homesteader using an outdoor cooking pit can push more heat toward their pot with half the wood. Even during controlled bushcraft experiments, this method consistently reduces fuel consumption by a fourth or more. These are the same advantages World War II soldiers relied on, not because it was clever, but simply because it worked. World War II ingenuity really shines through in small details like this. Studying these field techniques offers a different view of the war, one centered not on technology or strategy, but on the daily realities of people living outdoors with limited supplies. When you understand how something as simple as blackened wood allowed a fire to double its output, you gain deeper respect for the resourcefulness found at every front. And these small innovations add up. They kept troops healthier, more mobile, and more effective. This kind of knowledge isn't just for survivalists. It's a window into how people adapt, how necessity forces creativity, and how even the smallest improvements could shift the balance of comfort and endurance in the harshest environments. If you want more deep-cut wartime techniques, forgotten fieldcraft, and the lesser-known stories that shaped real lives on the front lines, make sure you subscribe to Forgotten Frontlines and share this guide with someone who loves history as much as you do.